Namaste. Hi, this is Vasant Ponkshe, a retired bank officer from Bank of Maharashtra. I am thankful to you for appreciating my first series, Wither Bank Privatisation. I also appreciate and thank you all the viewers for appreciating my first two videos of the next series, Bank Nationalization to Bank Privatisation, in which I am covering 1969 to 2020 period as to what has happened and the role played by the nationalized banks in the overall development of the Indian economy. Again, in this video number 3, it may be a situation that I will have to split this video in part A, B, C, and if at all if it is required, part D, because lot many happenings have taken place. Now coming to the core issue of 1991, the position that time was many initiatives were taken by different governments because in between the political parties ruling India have changed. But surprisingly, the momentum, the theme, the concepts, they continued as it is, and the economy was opened up. And during this period, many initiatives were taken by different governments and also by different managements, and obviously Reserve Bank of India. Now, looking to this era, as we say, many initiatives were taken. We will have to go like a curtain raiser as far as these things are concerned. What was happening up to 1990 is that the Indian economy was totally closed, rupee was non-convertible, high tariffs were not allowing imports to be available to the Indian market at competitive rates, and the situation was such that to produce anything in India, minimum 80 licenses were required to be acquired, and the situation was such that even for the research and development, licenses were required to be taken. To that extent, the economy was very, very close. And that is why, as I said, the markets of Indian markets were closed, and the situation came that the country came near to the bankruptcy. It was almost a situation like bankruptcy. And at that point of time, IMF came in, World Bank came in, and they gave a bailout to save the Indian economy. And that is why, as a condition of that, the gold was required to be transferred to Bank of London. Obviously, the rupee was required to be devaluated, and the economic reforms were forced on India both by IMF and by World Bank. When these loans were sanctioned, obviously different conditions were placed on the Indian economy, and on those conditions only IMF and World Bank, they came with the different kind of loans. Now on 12 November 1991, based on an application by Government of India, World Bank sanctioned a structural adjustment loan to the extent of $2.50 billion to be repaid in 20 years. And another loan, a credit line, was sanctioned of equal amount of $250 million for 35 years. And the peculiarity of these both loans, which were considered for the development and for saving the Indian economy from the rut, was that the agreement was done by the Ministry of Finance. But peculiar part of it that the President of India was considered to be the borrower. You can imagine how much humiliating that could be, that the President of India was considered to be a borrower. And this situation allowed the entry of World Bank as well as IMF to enter into Indian scene and start dictating terms as far as the running of Indian economy is concerned, as far as the banking is concerned, as far as the entire economic scenario is concerned. And as a result of that, there were many pressures on Indian rulers for deregulation, for allowing increased foreign direct investment, for more and more liberalization, for deregularizing the rate of interest on domestic savings. Today, everything is deregularized. Even saving rates, they are not regularized by anything. Then the insistence was that capital markets should be strengthened, stock markets, bond markets should be extended, and that is how IMF and World Bank, they started playing role in the Indian economic reforms. Now, as introduced the reforms in 1991, it brought the foreign competitors inside India, And certain public sector undertakings, they faced the competition because of the foreign companies entering into that. And the classic example of that was Enron. For power generation, Enron came in with lot many foreign direct investment, and what happened to Enron subsequently is in history. Let us not going into that. A peculiar observation that time was in India in 1991, only 50,000 engineers were being produced out of the educational institutions. Today, that position has gone beyond 1.5 million engineers. So, while proceeding, I just felt like sharing this information with you. Now, as I told you, as a result of balance of payment crisis, the structural reforms of reducing government involvement in every area were forced on us. And India had to take a position of mixed economic approach. They wanted that the economy should be developed in a mixed way. So public sector undertakings will be there, private sector undertakings will be there, and a huge competition will be created for the public sector within India. Those who were very close and those who were not having any competition, and in few cases there was monopoly also as far as the public sector in India was concerned. Now, when this approach of financial reforms was taken by India, the policy followed was that of Panchasutra. What were those Panchasutra? That is cautious and proper sequencing, mutually reinforcing the measures, complementary between reforms in banking sectors and the changes in fiscal policies, external and monopolistic policies they were introduced. Developing financial infrastructure within India was fostered, and it was compulsory that the financial market should be developed. These were the 5 points. We can call it as a Panchasutri that was being followed. Now, interestingly enough, when the economy was in crisis, banks were doing well, and as a result of that, in 1991-92, Government of India pushed 40 billion rupees as capital to Indian nationalized banks, and during the period of 6 years from 1993 to 1999, in between 97, 98, 1999, the rulers were changed. The political party ruling India had changed, but during those 6 years period, more than 120 billion rupees were injected in the nationalized banks to ensure that they are properly capitalized. So, this is a parameter we can feel that since the rulers thought that the nationalized banks are doing well and they should be kept alive, they should be promoted, they should be allowed to take the proper role for the development of Indian economy, the capitals were pushed. Even today, the capital is being provided by the government of India, but as we see, the buffer capitals is being raised by different banks after the fears of COVID pandemic, and they feel that the government may not be able to give that much capital as government used to give. Now, next step in 1993, the SBI Act in 1995 was amended, and SBI was insisted or allowed to raise the equity capital by offering its shares to general public. Now, after amendment in 1994, a Banking Regulation Act was also amended, and the nationalized banks were allowed to offer shareholding to the extent of 49% equity to the general public. This was the beginning of the privatization of nationalized banks, we can say. Now, in 1991, as I told earlier, the balance of payment crisis hit India, and there comes into the picture. As I am telling you, some issues are going to be explained during different eras. Some issues we will have to go back, we will have to go forward, go backward. That is how I will be trying to place the issue. So while I was coming to 1994, I wanted to place before you some background, and now coming back to the Nasirao government, the first budget which was placed, it clearly denounced the policy of liberalisation, privatisation and globalisation, and at the same time, you will be surprised to know that Soviet Union was collapsing. The talk of perestroika was there, and openness was being brought, and that time the thinking was there that world over only now the capitalism will remain, and there is no scope for communism, but that is not the issue of our topic today. So coming back to 1991, in March 1991, 9 banks by that time had set up the housing finance companies or housing finance subsidiaries. So on the other side, though the reforms were coming ahead and new initiatives being taken, the banks were also developing their own systems and they were ready to face the competitions. Now, after 1990 and 91, subsequently many other states and even central government came out with the agricultural debt relief schemes, and that was a new era. The concept of giving debt reliefs to the agriculture, and the first relief was, they say, was about 75,000 crores in those days. But that concept of debt relief do help the farmers, but that we can say that that developed the era of avoiding repayments, waiting for repaying, even if you have capacity, wait for the next debt rebate. So the culture of repayment started getting a hit right from the first debit, what we can say, the agricultural debt reliefs. Now, during that period, the Nasiban committee came into picture. There were two Nasiban committees appointed by Government of India at that time. First was appointed by Manmohan Singh. The another was appointed by P. Chidambaram being finance minister. But when the second report was submitted by a Nasiban committee, Yashwant Sinha was the finance minister. Nasivam was the ex-Governor Reserve Bank of India, and under his chairmanship, two committees were appointed. And in those days, those committee created lots of sensations. And in spite of the change in the governments, the recommendations of the Nasiban committee, they were pushed pushed ahead by earlier governments as well as by future governments. In my here I take a short break, and in my next part of this part 3 video, I will try to cover both 1991 Nasiban Committee and 1990 Nasiban Committee. Till then, I'm saying goodbye. I'm coming back with part B of this third video. Till then, goodbye. Wait for my next part B. Thank you.